It is 12:30, and so we want to honor your time and get started back where we left off, so you have plenty of time for work um, in between each component. So when we left for lunch, we were in the guided oral practice component, and we were discussing um, the strategies there. We had just talked about the here there chant, and we stopped here at the next strategy, which was the sentence patterning chart. So the sentence patterning chart is it is a strategy that is it is a transition strategy. It's encouraging students to use oral language, but it also begins to transition them into writing, and it's a very effective writing support. So this is, again, direct English language development instruction because students are given the parts of speech and are given explicit instruction about syntax and the way parts of speech are organized in English to produce sentences. It also reinforces vocabulary because those academic terms that we've been using in the chant and throughout the unit are used in this strategy. And then eventually, this sentence patterning chart can be used as an independent literacy activity. So students can transition from using it in a whole class setting to using it, in small group, and then eventually individually to begin to produce some writing. So you can see here, this is an example of one of Laura's children doing a sentence patterning chart on an interactive whiteboard. And so you can see just a little bit about it there. This is what the chart itself looks like. So when you begin a sentence patterning chart, you begin with a blank chart that is just 5 columns and a top header row. And then everything else you see on the poster is completed with the students' help in front of the classroom. So it's a very simple, very easy prep strategy. You'll also notice that as you look at the categories at the top, they are color-coded. Each one has a specific color. Adjectives are red, nouns black, verbs green, adverbs blue, and prepositional phrases orange. You can see that each column is color-coded. That's your chunking. It's also a scaffold for the parts of speech. Students remember adjectives are red, verbs are green, and then once they've gotten those parts of speech and had some practice and reinforcement with those ideas or that learning, then you can remove the color scaffolds. So the coloring is a scaffold. You also see other scaffolds there. You see pictures that help the students understand the definitions of each of the parts of speech. So that is our sentence patterning chart. And you can see how this would easily transition into writing since it is the syntax that we use in English to produce a sentence. So this is an example of one that goes along with Laura's plants unit. You can see the plural active noun, botanist. And you can see that the verb is written in present tense. Study, name, think, research. And that is intentional. Eventually, the chart can be adjusted. There is something called a flip activity where the verb can be actually conjugated, and we can change this to continuous or other verb tenses. So that's one variation of the strategy that you can use as students develop more language. Notice the adverb column here. The adverb column, it's suggested that you not put the adverb column in until you are so K and 1, kindergarten and first grade, it's not suggested they have an adverb. It is suggested that it just be 4 columns, adjective, noun, verb, and prepositional phrase. Second grade forward, adverbs are added in. And that's just more developmentally appropriate for those grade levels. This is an example of one for Loras. Here's one for my Indigenous people unit. You can see it's common sometimes for sketches to accompany the sentence patterning chart. If there's a vocabulary word that someone shares that gets placed up there, like diverse, that maybe students might not know, a quick sketch there will help them understand it better. And then also sometimes there is a sketch for the noun that is chosen for the chart, and in this case, Indigenous people. So that's a good example of the process and the creation of the sentence patterning chart. What we're going to do now is actually demonstrate the chant and the chart together. So remember we talked about that. Project GLAD strategies can be used independently, or they can be used, some work really well together. We call that hanging together. Some support one another. So the here, there chant supports the sentence patterning chart. They hang together. So, and you can see why that might be, because the sentence patterning chart is teaching sentence structure. It's teaching the parts of speech. And if you remember our template for the here, there chant, the here, there chant has all of the parts of speech incorporated in it. So the chant is going to support the sentence patterning, and I'm going to show you how that works. As always, with Project GLAD strategies, we always want to have our objectives posted. Our content objective is we will explain how environmental conditions determine how well plants survive and grow. And our language expectation is we will construct scientific explanations that describe observations and or data about a phenomenon. And then you notice here that I've underlined and added a piece. So when we talked about our language expectations and we found them in our little quick checklist chart, what was present in that chart was the language standard and the function. But there's a third piece that we add to that language expectation, and that is the language feature. And we just wanted to briefly mention it here. We wanted to kind of scaffold your introduction to those ELD language expectations. So the third piece of that language expectation is the targeting of a specific language feature that you are going to teach your students explicitly during the unit. And in this case, or use it while you're doing the strategy rather. So while I'm doing the strategy here, we're going to focus on prepositional phrases. Now that language target, of course, needs to be appropriate for your students. So prepositional phrases work here, but if I had, advanced L's, there would be another targeted language feature. So the question earlier about how does ELD classroom look different from content classroom, this is one of the ways. This language feature that you see here that's bolded and underlined would receive a lot of instruction, a lot of practice, a lot of support in an ELD classroom, where in a content classroom it might be briefly mentioned and as like a little mini lesson in order to carry out the strategy. So that is a language feature. And I'm going to show you, one thing we've also been doing is I want to show you what a student-friendly language objective looks like. So of course, these are objectives for us. They might go in our planning book, but when we introduce these objectives to students, we want them to be in a student-friendly language. So I've taken our language objective there and made it student-friendly, which says we will construct explanations that describe an experience using prepositional phrases, which is much more understandable. And of course, you want to unpack your objectives with your students to make sure they understand what they're learning and what their target is. So having said all of that, now we're ready to move on to the demonstration of the sentence patterning chart. This is what I'm going to use, the digital version. This is what the digital version looks like. I have adjusted it just a little bit. You have a copy you have linked on your handout sheet, there is a copy of, just see, on your handout links document, the very bottom, you will see technology used in training, and you'll see sentence patterning chart, make a copy. And so you have a copy of this. You can click on this, make a copy, and you're all ready to go to do this digitally with your students. You have the exact layout and that Google drawing, so where you can just start just like I start today with you guys. So you can make a copy of that and use that. So you do have access to that. So let's go ahead and let's do our sentence patterning chart. Okay, so the sentence patterning chart is, here's our sentence patterning chart. We're going to start out with the chant. So I'm just going to ask you to, what we're going to hope that our, if you have the ability to turn on your camera, that would be really nice, because like I said, when we do the chants, we're going to do gestures with them. And I'd love to see you doing the gestures and saying the chant along with me. We won't unmute just because digitally that can be a little overwhelming with so many unmuted mics. So if you have the ability to just show yourself on camera, then that would be awesome. So you can follow along. If you don't have the ability, then if you will just do it with us, even with your camera off. So you can see the botanist chant here. I'm going to demo the chant just like I would demo it with kids, with students. So we'll go ahead and begin. Okay, kiddos, our chant that we're gonna talk about today is a botanist. So our chant is called Botanist Here, Botanist There. And it is by Laura Bridges. That's our author. So I want you to just watch me do the chart, watch my hand motions, and then when I try it the second time, maybe you can join in with me, okay? So here's the way we're going to do this chant. Botanist here, botanist there, botanist, botanist everywhere. Energetic botanist, naming scientifically. Thoughtful botanist, studying continually. Wise botanist, thinking critically. And hardworking botanist, researching carefully. Botanist in the rainforest. Botanist behind the microscope. Botanist under the tree branches. And botanist at the laboratory. Botanist here, botanist there, botanist, botanist everywhere. Botanist, botanist, botanist. Okay, guys. Now, if you'll just join in with me while you feel comfortable, say the chant with me and see if you can do the motions, okay? Botanist here, botanist there, botanist, botanist everywhere. Energetic botanist, naming scientifically. Thoughtful botanist, studying continually. Wise botanist, thinking critically. And hardworking botanist, carefully researching. Botanist in the rainforest. Botanist behind the microscope. Botanist under tree branches. And botanist at the laboratory. Botanist here, botanist there, botanist, botanist everywhere. Botanist, botanist, botanist. You guys did a super awesome job. Thank you so very much for joining me with our chant. So we're also gonna just go from our chant here to our next activity. And this activity is going to talk to us about the parts of speech. So a part of speech is like a building block. We use parts of speech in languages, in English, to put together sentences. So we're going to talk about the parts of speech, and then you're going to help me come up with some examples for those parts of speech. So let's start with our first part of speech. Our first part of speech that we're going to talk about is a noun. Say that with me. Noun. Great. A noun is a person, a place, or a thing. Now, it can also be an idea. I'm going to add that on there. A person, place, thing, or idea. So, we look at our pictures here. Our noun is going to be a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Now, what noun have we been talking about? Let's look at our chant. What noun have we been discussing? Can somebody just unmute and just tell me? Just tell me, anybody, tell me. What's the noun we've been working with?
Botanist.
Awesome, botanist. Absolutely. We have been talking about botanists. Good job. Thank you for sharing that. Now, we've been talking about some botanists. So that's our noun. Okay. What is that? Is that a person, a place, a thing like an animal, or an idea? That's a person. That's right. A botanist is a person. Good job. So our next part of speech is going to be an adjective. Say that with me. Adjective. Good job. Adjectives describe nouns. Adjectives describe nouns. They describe nouns. So now how do they describe nouns? Well, adjectives usually tell what something looks like, what something sounds like, what it tastes like, what it smells like, and what it feels like. So those are adjectives, and they describe nouns. Okay, so I want you to take a minute and think about your adjectives. Think about some adjectives. I want you to consider, take a minute, and if we were in face-to-face, they would turn and put their heads together with a partner sitting near them. But for this modeling, we won't do that. So adjectives, think about the adjectives that might describe a botanist. And then when you're ready, just yell them out to me. Just unmute, yell them out to me. Tell me some adjectives that would describe a noun. We might say, look at those botanists. They are so what? What were some adjectives we could use? Just tell me.
Energetic.
Energetic. Awesome. What about some other ones? Just tell me.
Thoughtful.
Thoughtful. Tell me some more.
Wise.
Wise, absolutely. Other ones?
Hardworking.
Hardworking, absolutely. You guys did a great job with those. Look at those botanists. They are so energetic. Awesome. Okay, so those are our adjectives. Now, our next part of speech is going to be a verb. Say that with me. Verb. Awesome. So a verb is going to describe an action. Okay. Verbs are going to describe actions, kind of like somebody running or jump roping or exercising. That's an action. So verbs are going to tell what those botanists are doing. What do botanists do? What do botanists do? Okay, so take a minute, put your heads together, think about what do botanists do, and then when you're ready, just tell me, give me some verbs. Just tell me, unmute and tell me. Sorry?
Research.
Couldn't quite understand. Say one more time. Or others just share. Just tell me, what do botanists do?
Studying.
They study. Good job. I heard someone say they think. What else did they do?
Naming.
They name. Good job. What else?
Work.
Search.
They work, they research. Good job. You guys did an awesome job with those verbs. Those botanists do lots of actions. Good job. Now let's go to the next part of speech. Our next part of speech is what we call an adverb. Say that with me. Adverb. Good job. Now, adverbs describe verbs. They tell how something happens. And they usually end in ly. They usually end in the letters ly. Adverbs do. And adverbs say how someone is doing an action. Okay, so let's think about it. How do those botanists study? Put your heads together, think about it, and when you're ready, just tell me. Just unmute and tell me. How do those botanists study?
Continually.
Continually, right? Continually. Good. All right, tell me some other adverbs. How do those botanists think or name or work?
Critically.
Critically. Wonderful. How about some others? Just tell me.
Continually.
Okay, we have continually, we have critically. Let's look at our chant over here. If we look at our chant, we're looking for words that describe how an action is done. We see some ly words. I see continually here, and I see critically. What other adverbs do you see from our chant?
Carefully.
Scientifically.
Scientifically, good. Any others?
Carefully.
Carefully, awesome, carefully. Okay, you guys did an excellent job with that. So our last part of speech, our last building block that we're going to use to put together a sentence is something we call a prepositional phrase. Say that with me, prepositional phrase. Now, prepositional phrases are not just one word, they're a group of words that are put together. And prepositional phrases tell us when and where something happens. So, when and where, the direction sometimes, the time of day, the time on the clock, they're going to tell us when and where something is happening, okay? So, let's see if we can put our heads together and come up with some prepositional phrases. Now, prepositions are words. Let me give you some examples of some prepositions. In is a preposition. On is a preposition. Behind is a preposition. Around is a preposition. And those are just a couple of prepositions that you might use in your phrases to tell me when and where. Okay, put your heads together. Talk about some prepositional phrases that might tell me when and where our botanists are when they're doing these actions. And then just tell me, just unmute and tell me.
In the rainforest.
In the rainforest, awesome.
Behind the microscope.
Behind the microscope. Hey, what
Under the
else?
tree
Just tell me.
branches. Under the tree branches.
Under the tree branches. What else? Any other ones?
At the laboratory.
At the laboratory. Yes, at the laboratory. Wonderful. At the laboratory. You guys did such a wonderful job helping me come up with all these parts of speech. Now I'm going to sing you. We can use all of these parts of speech. We can put them together to make a sentence. And we can actually sing them if we wanted to. So I'm going to sing how we might put these words together. And I'm going to ask that you listen first. And then I'm going to ask you to join in with me, okay? So listen to the tune. adjective, adjective, noun, adjective, adjective, oh, sorry, adjective, adjective, noun, adjective, adjective, noun, adjective, adjective, noun, verb, adverb, prepositional phrase. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you to join in with me, okay? Adjective, adjective, noun, adjective, adjective, noun, adjective, adjective, noun, verb, adverb, prepositional phrase. Good job. Y'all sang well with me. So now I would like somebody to help me out. I need a volunteer. Oh, actually, before we do a volunteer, let's try using some of our words down here. So I'm going to choose some words. Put a little sticky next to the words I'm going to use. I'm going to use energetic, hardworking. I'm going to use study. And I'm going to use carefully. And then my prepositional phrase is going to be in the laboratory. Okay, so I'm going to sing now using the words that you gave me. So just listen, then I'm going to ask you to join in. Energetic, hardworking botanist, energetic, hardworking botanist, energetic, hardworking botanist, study carefully at the laboratory. Now sing along with me. Energetic, hardworking botanist, energetic, hardworking botanist, energetic, hardworking botanist, study carefully at the laboratory. Gosh, you guys did a great job. Now I need someone to help me. I need a brave person who will mix up our words, choose different words, and lead the group in our chant. Okay, is there someone who is brave enough to unmute and lead us in the chant?
I will.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so tell me what words you'd like to select, and I will move the sticky notes around for you. What words would you like to select?
Thoughtful and wise.
Okay, thoughtful, thoughtful, and wise. Thoughtful and wise. Okay, and what verb would you like?
Think.
Think. Okay, and how about an adverb? What adverb?
Critically.
Critically, okay. And how about our prepositional phrase? Which one would you like to use?
Under the tree.
Under the tree, okay. So I'm going to ask that you just kind of lead us, and we'll join in with you singing, with you leading us through the chant with these new words that you've selected. Okay?
Okay. Thoughtful, wise botanist. Thoughtful, wise botanist.
Botanist, thoughtful, wise botanist,
Think
think critically
under the tree.
tree. Yay! Thank you so much for being so brave as to do that. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for volunteering to do that. I know it is super hard to sing in front of a whole group of people. But this is how we would use the chant. And so let me just explain some things in the implementation that you saw. So you saw me use the pointer to track. So we want to track, and if we were in face-to-face mode, we would probably have a little pointer and we would point from word to word to word, or a yardstick. You want to help, and that's to help the students track as well. You also want to be sure that the tune they're singing is actually The Farmer in the Dale. That's what the tune is. I don't know if you could make that out from my singing, but that was the tune that you do the chant to. Notice that I said join in when you feel comfortable. There's that low anxiety. We are all saying it together. Low anxiety, low affective filter. Okay. We're all singing it together, saying it together. Nobody's paying attention to if I mispronounce it or you mispronounce it. That helps create that low anxiety level, or that low affective filter. I don't know if you noticed, one of the things I thought was really cool about this is that when I asked you to share, I did not call on you individually. I did not say raise your hand and share. I said just tell me. Does anybody know why I did that? So I said, just tell me, because that allows me to only take the correct answers. I don't have to create that anxiety but because inevitably, when you do this, some children are going to call out when you're asking them for nouns or I mean, for adverbs or verbs, they're going to call out incorrect words. And the anxiety increases if you call on a child and you have to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not correct." But if I have everyone saying, just tell me, I can filter and choose the ones that are correct and place them on the chart. And that also helps keep that effective filter, that anxiety level low. That is another thing that is strategically done. If you notice the gradual release process, I did it. Okay, then I had you help me do it. Depending on how well your kids kind of adjust, you might do multiple times of you creating the sentences and moving the stickies and then practicing before you hand it over to another student. But gradually the process is handed over to the students to do. And then you can see how this then becomes a writing structure. Then the students can use this to create and write sentences about what they've learned. And they start to internalize the parts of speech. They start to internalize what they are, what the definitions of them are, and they start to internalize the syntax, the structure with which they're used. So awesome activity for learning to write. Just recently, actually, at the high school where I work, we had a student who is, I think he's in his third ESL class and really struggling with writing. We've had the beginning ESL classes, and now he's moved on to an upper level ESL class because that's how he has to move, basically, because it's, you know, even though he's not acquired all he needs to, he can't take the same class, and they only have 4 until they can put in place until they graduate. So, you know, there's limited, but he has moved on. He's not really ever been able to write a sentence by himself. He also has, you know, some, we believe probably some disability. And we used the sentence patterning chart with him last week. And he wrote, we went through the process. We wrote 3 sentences together. He wrote 2 sentences all by himself. And he understood the sentences he wrote, and he read the sentences to us that he wrote. So he was so excited for himself, and we were so excited for him. So this is a really powerful activity that you can use. Like I said, it's that transition between oral spoken language into writing and reading. It's just, I can't speak enough about how valuable it is. Sometimes when I use it in a secondary classroom, you know, secondary kids may not be quite as cool with the Farmer in the Dale. So we just say the words, not necessarily to a tune. Sometimes I will use it in small group activity. If I have a group where I have a varied writing abilities, we might all review the chart and share words that the actual using it to write, I would do in a small group with the kiddos that needed that additional support. So there's lots of different ways you can use this. It can be varied. So let's say I have some really high flyers. And they don't need this in the structure anymore. Then I can rearrange my chart, and I can take my prepositional phrase and put it in the beginning. If I move that prepositional phrase to in the beginning of the sentence, I now have an introductory phrase, which is a complex sentence. Or I move that prepositional phrase in the middle of my sentence, I have an embedded clause. Okay, so there are lots of different ways to adjust the chart to the proficiency level of your students. As I mentioned, we can go to the verbs, and we can conjugate them. So many different ways with different tenses, so many different ways the chart can be used. It's just, I think, a very powerful strategy. Any questions about that and how it would be implemented in a classroom, what the steps are for implementing in any of that?
While they're thinking about that, I just wanted to say that the sentence patterning chart was also the first strategy that I tried to implement on my own. And I was shocked at how successful I was with it and how successful my students were. I had an observation. My principal came in, and I had a group of 8 or 9 third grade boys that I did this with, and they were literally jumping up and down, could not wait to move the sticky notes to make their sentence and sing it themselves. And these were boys that were, hesitant to speak. And now they're ready to sing in front of everybody because they're so confident. And the other thing I wanted to say was, especially in elementary, you're going to have them shouting out different adjectives, verbs, adverbs, prepositional phrases than what you have on the chant, and that's okay. You can, and it's actually good because you get a good mixture of different variations, and they really enjoy that. And sometimes they can come up with silly sentences, and that's fun too. Um, you know, we have to make sure they're understanding what they're doing, but the children really respond to this very well.
And just to second that, I'm glad Laura mentioned that. The chant is a support. It's a scaffold. There is nothing that says they have to use all of those words on that chant. That chant is there. We might have very academically versed multilingual learners, and they might share more academic terms than are on this chant, and that's okay. The chant is there to support. So I know oftentimes when we have demoed this with our elementary kids, depending on what grades, adverbs are the ones usually that we have to go back and reference the chant pretty heavily for, because that's a new skill for them if they're in like second grade or third grade. So the chant is there for support, but they can share all kinds of verbs, and it doesn't have to be in the chant. So that's perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. And they do love it. I've seen kids. I had a kid one year that third grade that was a bit of a behavior problem. And when I gave the opportunity to lead the chant, he stepped up, and that's all he wanted to do. And he was so serious and so responsible, and this was his thing. And it really translated into him being able to be a leader. So that was a wonderful thing. So I'll second what Laura says. It's a great strategy. Okay. If there are no questions, and I'm not seeing any in the chat box, I'm going to go to our final strategy, which are picture file cards. We've been talking about picture file cards all along. The cards that we put on the chants to help students understand the words, the cards that you put on your pictorial input charts to help them comprehend those categories and that information, the pictures that you put on the world map, the pictures that are in the big book. All of these are picture file cards. And they can be used in all of those areas, but additionally, they can be used independently as a strategy. And so just to review what you've heard many times, the picture file cards need to be high quality images. They need to be in color. They need to be real life images, because they are sparking that interest and they're helping kids comprehend. So the more detail, the better the picture. That's great. So these pictures are going to support comprehension, and they will eventually become, or can eventually become, the basis for personal research. So we might choose a picture and students might research what's in that image and use that to write about their research. So there's so many different ways picture file cards can be used. The great thing about the picture file cards is once you have them, you have them. Once you have a set, you have 10 minutes at the end of class and you're thinking, I want to reinforce their learning. Let's pull out the picture file cards. The picture file cards can be used in a couple of ways, and I'm going to show you that. Here's some example of some secondary picture file cards. The ones we just saw were for Laura's botanist unit. Laura, did you just want to explain what those pictures were?
Sure. So these are some examples of the tropical plant group. So you have the orchid and the pineapple, and then the last one is the air plant. There are certain plants that don't require a lot of soil or any soil in order to grow, and they're very unusual, and the children love to learn about those. So those are from the process grid. That would have been the tropicals row of plant group.
Thank you so much, Laura. I would not have known anything but the pineapple because I am not a plant person. So thank you for sharing. And then we look here, and these are some from my secondary unit, and you can tell that powerful images sometimes, many times from history. Sometimes in history, depending on when in history it was, we have to use drawings or artworks as opposed to pictures, because if we are using a time period before photography was created. So sometimes you'll see that in history units as well as in English language art units, which Laura mentioned. You can see panning for gold. You can see Movement West and the Conestoga wagons and the family, the railroad, the building of the Transcontinental Railroad and its opening. So you can see how these picture file cards would just be very engaging. The way that you can use picture file cards are in sorts. And I will say, when you watch the kids do this, this is awesome because it generates so much academic discourse, so much discourse on their own, where they're talking and interacting. And it's just really powerful to see. And they're interacting and talking the content language. The way you would do, there's two types of sorts. There's an open sort and a closed sort. And I'm going to show you an example of a digital version of a card sort. You have, this is done in Google Drawings. And just like I told you earlier in that handout link, you'll see picture card sort where you can make a copy. And it has the background here. And all you have to do to add images is just to insert image, search the web, and you insert an image. It's really easy. And the images will move all over the place. So when you do an open sort, that means that you don't tell the kids the categories. So they have to literally talk about what goes together. And they have to move the cards and create their own categories. And it's any category they can make. They might be like, if I look at these, I might be like, let's see, I see soldiers. No, those are not soldiers. Sorry. I see soldiers in these two pictures, and that might be my category. Category was soldiers. And so the kids talk about and then move the cards, and they have to all agree on the category. And you can provide them some sentence frames. If you want to introduce that academic language, give them some sentence frames. One common theme I see with the pictures is the United States Army. I observe many pictures of Native Americans. I believe this picture goes in this category because, so whenever they move a picture and add it, they have to use a sentence frame. And so that is the way that you're kind of supporting them in the language production with the frames, but also pushing them toward complete sentences and the use of academic language like theme and observe and category. So that is an open sort. Now, a closed sort would be where you give them the categories. A closed sort would be where you give them the category. So I might say, for example, I want you to find all the different images of transportation. Transportation is a category. Find the transportation categories, the transportation pictures. Then I might give them 4 or 5 categories, and they might have to organize them the way that they go. This is the way that you can do it digitally. You can also use Google Jamboard to do it digitally, whichever you prefer or are used to. If you want to insert a picture here, I'll just show you really quickly. Insert image, search the web, type Western movement, hit an image, hit insert, and there it goes. I mean, it's very simple to do. If you want to put categories in here, very simple to do. So that's how you might do it digitally. If you wanted to do it, if you did it face to face, then you would create several versions of the picture, several sets of the picture file cards, put students in groups and let them spread out and work on that. And then you can follow up the picture sorts with gallery walks. You can have the kids walk around and see how other students or how other groups group their cards. You can put some comparative language in there and say, ask them to make a comparative statement about their categories and another group's categories. For example, you might put a frame on the board that says, our category on transportation is different from Carrie's group on Carrie's category on Native American abuses. So you can have them compare how they sorted. There's just a lot of ways that these sorts can be used. I see somebody putting in there, I've used the open sort and taught in it was taught in my AIG licensing training. Yes, critical thinking. They are making those categories themselves. And remember, our brain uses patterns and groupings. So once we group those, that is going to help as well. So awesome. I love these. I love to watch the kids do these because of the language that they are able to elicit from one another. So that takes us to the end of this component, which was our guided oral practice. Let's take just one quick minute and in the chat box, let's choose one of these. Or let's actually just answer, they're both kind of on the same topic. What challenges arise when you're encouraging oral interaction or discourse in your classroom? So whenever we have kids interacting with each other and trying to get them to engage in those academic conversations, what challenges happen and how might these strategies help with those challenges? Okay, so take a minute and think about it. And then if you will just add your ideas into the chat box, I would appreciate it. And then once we've added a couple, if you'd like to unmute and share one or two ideas, that would be great as well. What challenges do you face when you do oral interaction activities or try to have academic discourse? And how might these open sort strategies or the sentence patterning chart or the chants, how might they help overcome those challenges? So I see one person sharing off-task talking is a challenge. The card sort would direct that chatting, and absolutely timing it is perfect. We all know that when we give too much time for something, little minds will stray. Or big minds will stray. Students may not want to participate given the sentence stems and the partner work is safer. Yes, all of these are group. There's no wrong answer in an open sort. Anything you see that is similar can be a category. So there's no wrong answers for that. You're not putting someone on the spot with the chant, everybody's singing at the same time. Students might be shy if we have them in small groups. They're going to be more confident in being able to speak. So lots of good answers. Thank you all for sharing that. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to our work time. And so our goal for this work time is for you to continue working on and finishing the strategy that you were working on during our last work time, and then going on and trying to add in a guided oral practice strategy. So as I said, the sentence patterning chart you already have digitally available to you that you can make a copy of. So maybe you work on a chant, or you work on gathering some more of those picture file cards that you can use in a sort. You also have the template for the sort. So if you click and make a copy of the template on your links handout, you can just add pictures for your picture card sort there. A digital one. So that's what we want you to be working on for this next work time. Laura, how much time are we going to give?
Let's see, it's about 1:20. I want to say 30 minutes.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll come back then at
2:10.
2:10. And probably that will take us.
No. I'm sorry. That's not right. 30 minutes will be 1:51.
Okay, I was like, okay. And probably that will take us, we might have some work time at the end of that set, at the end of the next component. Or we may not, this may be our last opportunity for work time. We'll just see. We're going to be true to your, respect your time and make sure that we end our session today at the correct time. So at 1:50, and we will open breakout rooms, and the directions are to work on a here, there chant, or picture file cards, dash sorts.
Chrissy, while you're typing that out, I just wanted to speak to something about the picture file sort, and also with releasing students to have time together to work, which is very important. Sometimes the social skills haven't been developed very well in some students. Sometimes you have to teach how to be a responsible, team member. And I know that I said yesterday about the three learning standards, the three where it said solve problems, show respect, and make good decisions. Those three things are extremely important. And when you go to one of the Orange County Department of Ed trainings and you get to go to the classroom of students, those students really work on those type things, and they are able to really sharpen those skills, and they are able to get points for their team if they're showing the right social skill that they're being introduced to. And a lot of times those social skills are like collaboration, cooperation, and so the culture of GLAD overall is to encourage them to be empowered and for them to be cooperative and to value each person. And so those are great times to work on those types of things, social skills, your SEL, the SEL, things that are so important. And so, blending those kind of things in. And if you anticipate problems, I put this in the chat, but you might want to think about modeling with a student that will volunteer to work with you in front of everyone to show what you're expecting. And I've seen a lot of students rise to the occasion with that.
And I'm glad Laura shared that. Thank you so much. And honestly, guys, our kids even know, like, one of the big things I've noticed with our kids is they don't know how to invite someone to speak. So, if you've ever put kids in a group, and there's usually like those one or two kids that'll like just start out of the gates, and they'll start doing everything. And then there's these two kids who are sitting there who are not engaged and not working with the group. And one of the first things I did with my kids when we used these strategies was teach them how to invite. So if you are seeing that only 2 people in your group are working, how can you encourage the other person? So we talked about naming that person and saying, John, what do you think? What picture would go where? We talked about inviting people into conversations. And once they got the hang of it, you would be really surprised how that took care of those kids who weren't necessarily actively engaged in what the group was doing, because it's different for a peer to invite you and for a teacher to make you. And so, that's a great example. The examples gave Laura, and this one, inviting people, that is a good example of how we need to teach those skills. So thank you for sharing that, Laura. I have our work time is on there, and unfortunately this breakout box is going to come up there, and I'm going to let Laura put the breakout rooms up and just not put the box up, because I think we know where we need to go at this point. That way we don't cover up our time to come back or our directions.
Okay, sure. Those breakout sessions have begun.
Okay, and again, we'll be popping in breakout sessions. We'll stay in the room here. If you need us, please don't hesitate to ask for help or put on our feedback chart that your link so that we can give feedback.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed your work session, being able to use the time to work on different strategies that you need to find things, find pictures, find information. We're going to begin with component 4 now, which is our reading and writing component. And the 3 strategies that we're going to be modeling or telling you about, 4 strategies, excuse me, learning logs, which we've already had some exposure to, mind maps, expert group text, and the process grid. So as you will recall, yesterday we started with the end in mind on the process grid, and now we're going to look at the second purpose for the process grid. And so that'll be really fun to follow that line of thought as we wrap up our session today. So the first reading and writing component strategy we'd like to tell you about is the learning log. And as you experienced when we were processing the pictorial input, it's a simple yet powerful tool for students to record connections to the text and to their own lives. One way to use this after you've processed an input strategy chart is to do the learning log. Once that input delivery is complete, you can already have a prompt that's ready to go, and you can have them both write and sketch to show their thinking. This is an example of one of my students. I was doing a unit about being healthy, and we talked about the circulatory system. We talked about exercise and vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbs, lots of really great information. This was a 4th grade standard. And you can see that on the left, the prompt was, tell me something new that you've learned. And the way that they drew the heart was almost exactly how I had drawn a sketch of the heart, talking about the chambers, talking about, the arteries and the veins feeding and taking away blood throughout the body. So I thought that was amazing. And then I asked how it connected to the students' lives, and I believe this was one of my boys. Exercise connects to my life by playing soccer. Playing soccer makes you strong. And he's got his soccer ball and his net and playing with that. And I thought that was great. And students could do this in less than 5 minutes. And they love keeping those in their folders and pulling those out, looking at them again. And it is that moment of learning for them that they really enjoy, coming back to later on. And so the learning log is, like I said, really simple but really powerful. The next strategy I want to talk to you about is the mind map. A lot of you that have done learning focused in the past know a lot about different types of graphic organizers like this. So there's the bubble maps, there's the, all different tree maps and flow maps. And this is just one map or graphic organizer that GLAD uses in order to transfer information. This is kind of similar to a spider map. It sort of resembles a spider, and each leg of the spider has different information. It helps students categorize information learned and to review facts. It's not color coded, as in the other charts, because the information has been presented many times over and the students are accustomed to it. We are teaching them to manage information by transfer. This is what takes place in our brain naturally. On each leg, or you could call it a spoke if you wanted to, like a wheel, you can see the categories or columns from the process grid. So if you think back to the plant survival process grid, the different categories of information are all there. The plant parts, the soil composition, the life cycle, environment, and examples. And in the middle, you'll see that there's a line and it tells you to write in the plant group. So you get one of these for each row of the process grid. Now, the first row of the process grid is done whole class, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the other ones are done individually in small groups with the teacher, and I'll explain that process. So in the center, you're going to write in, it might be annuals, tropicals, tundra plants, succulents, that type of thing. And then you'll use the information to record facts that we'll use later on in the next strategy. So you can use the same mind map for each row. You just fill in different information. So that's nice that you only have to design one of those and you can use them over and over again. All right. There will be a small group time for students to become what we call experts on that particular row of the process grid. For example, using the plant survival process grid, you would use tropicals, succulents, annuals, or tundra plants as the plant group. And then you would fill in the information under each one of these legs to categorize that. So this is a little bit more clear. This is a mind map that is filled out at the top. So you'll see that the shrubs, you're familiar with that now with the pictorial input that I did. So you can see that this just transfers all of that information from the pictorial input chart into the mind map for shrubs. And so you can see that shrubs is the top row or first row of our process grid, which I've highlighted in navy. So we want to learn everything we can about the shrubs, and all of that is going to be on one page so that the students will have good access to it. They've written these facts out themselves, and that also helps the brain commit that to memory. All right, I'm going to give some examples of other mind maps from other units. And you can see on the left that the celebrations unit, this was a second grade unit that our friends in Henderson County did. One of the process grid rows for them was the Chinese New Year. You can see that the columns or the attributes of their process grid were geographic location, calendar, history, and customs. And you can see that they filled in the information pertaining to the Chinese New Year on that one. On the right, the circulatory system was one of the body systems in this 5th grade healthy body unit or body systems unit. And you can see all of the categories are listed all around, and they've listed all of their important facts there. Now, what we're going to do with that, the next several strategies work together. They hang together because one just flows into the other one. And this is actually a picture of students doing this with the celebrations unit when I was there that day. They're filling in their mind map for whichever celebration they were studying. For example, this one was the Scottish Highlands. So they learned a lot about the Scottish Highlands tradition and celebration and um, in that mind map. And then you'll see to the left, they have another piece of paper, which is called our expert text. And I will be explaining about that in just a minute. But when you are working with these, they're given to the student at the same time, and they will be using those two together. So I wanted you to see that those were together. The student has a pencil and a highlighter. Those are the two tools that they're given. And this is an actual live shot. So I always like to use those in the training so you can see what they really look like. Now I'm going to go into expert groups. Expert groups are very important in educating the students in more depth and also sort of maybe calcifying the learning that they've already had. It's not the first time they've heard about this. This is information that's been, put in that input, the guided oral practice, all of those layers and layers and layers and different angles and multifaceted instruction has gone on. And so now they're given a reading, a sheet of paper that's got a lot of information about one of the groups. And this is back to Plant Survival Unit. This is the Tropicals Expert Text. And expert texts are designed to bring more detail about each topic into the process grid. Imagine this scenario. Children are seated in groups of 4. We call each group a team, and we normally assign the name of a team a color such as red, blue, green, or whatever color you choose. Each student on each team will select a number between 1 and 4. The student will call for all of the number 1s to come to the back table, and he or she will hand out a mind map and an expert text. The students will also have their pencil and highlighter, as I said. This is how you would start. You would give out the individual mind map, point out the categories, and read, define, and discuss these words, just the headings of the categories. Next, you'll show picture file cards that correspond with the topic. So we're using those file cards again. You'll ask the students, what do you notice about these? And then you'll use the categories for prompts. So you'll start getting them thinking about these different things pertaining to that plant group. You'll model fluent reading by first reading the title and read only the first paragraph all the way through fluently, tracking each word. Then you'll model pulling out a key fact, highlighting that word with your highlighter, and then doing a think aloud with them and say, I think this word is important because, and then give your rationale for why you're pulling that fact out, or pulling that word or couple of words out to highlight. Then with the pencil, you'll draw a line down to connect with a quick sketch. So if you'll look on the screen, you'll see under soil composition, I've got swampy, and I've got a little swamp that I sketched. I've got watering, and you can see it's a little hose with the water spraying out. Those are the little sketches that really mean something to my brain. And the students are going to do a sketch that might look a little bit different, but that's okay. That means something to their brain. And then as you continue with each paragraph, students can share what to highlight and why as a gradual release. So the students start to figure out, they're getting into kind of that groove of understanding what you're trying to do. Then once that is completed, you go to the mind map, you bullet the facts and sketch. So remember, on the mind map, that is actually the information is transferred from the expert text to the mind map. Now the students have all the information they need to become experts in that topic. The teacher would then call all of the twos to the back table and continue the process with a different topic. Okay, so row 2 on that process grid, or the expert group 2, would be the succulents. So they would become experts just on the succulents row of the process grid. Then the same process would take place with the 3s and 4s. Now you have all of the students as experts of different topics. As they return to their tables, at each table you have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. You've got an expert in different plant groups sitting all together as a team. And this is just an example of what I was describing with a natural resources unit. The row they were focused on in this group was gold. And at the top, you can see here some picture file cards of molten gold being poured into bars, gold jewelry, gold bars that are already cooled, and some money that uses gold within the money itself. All right, and on the left, you can see the expert group text with the highlights and sketches. On the bottom right, you'll see the mind map. So all of that goes together. Now I just wanted to show you this picture so you can see how we move from the pictorial input chart, which is on the far left. This is the natural resources unit, and the row that I was working on is the natural resource is water. And that was a really fun pictorial because we talked about solids, liquids, gas. We talked about all different properties. We talked about effects of heat, effects of cooling, and the description. And that was really great. Then, as a whole class, we do a whole class mind map where we take the information from the pictorial and move it over to the whole class mind map, which you see in the middle of the picture. Then we take that over to the process grid, and we ask students to get together in their teams to tell each other facts that they've learned in their expert groups, and they can teach their team about that particular row. So water would be all of my number ones. So the number one person that chose to be number one in that group, he or she would take out their mind map and they would teach their teammates about the different categories very quickly. And then that team would put their heads together, come up with one fact that would go on our process grid. And when they're called on, they will give that fact using a sentence starter or a sentence frame. And a good example of a sentence frame that they would use for this one would be one of the effects of heat for water is that it evaporates. So they have to synthesize not only what row they're on, but also cross it with the particular attribute of that natural resource. So effects of heat, effects of cooling, a property, something like that. And it sounds like it's pretty complicated, but it actually, when you carry it out in person, the students are right there with you. They totally understand what to do. And it is a way of bringing it all back full circle to the process grid. And eventually you'll see the whole process grid be completed. You know, if you have time to do all of it, be completed in front of you by, you know, at the end of the unit. So this is what it looks like when, this is from another training that Chrissy and I did in Johnston County. So I had the pictorial input from the plant unit there. And so you can see on the right, what I did was I filled in each column: plant parts and functions, soil composition, life cycle, environment, and so forth. And then I said, we're going to fill out the first row for shrubs. We're going to use information from our pictorial input. And then different ones start calling out different facts. And you'll say, well, I don't know where that goes. Tell me where that goes. And the students are really good about using those sentence frames that we've given them to be able to tell us where the fact goes on the chart. Any questions about this so far? Feel free to unmute or type in the chat.
I don't see any in the chat, Laura.
All right. Well, here's a couple more pictures from that. You can see on the left one, that's how I started with the process grid. You start completely blank. You can go ahead and put your grid lines, which is helpful. But actually, when I should have just done like the XY axis and left the bottom cells alone, because you never know how much room you're going to take when you're doing your rows. So it's better to leave those lines off. But, you know, we all make mistakes. But anyway, that's just to kind of show you how that process works. It's sort of, they all just kind of cascade from pictorial to mind map to process grid. This is a video that you can watch later on that kind of shows you what it looks like in the classroom for the students to be able to play the process grid game. We call it a game. We're going to play a game. We've learned so much about plant survival, you know, and I know that we've got some experts in the room. Tell me, number ones, who's the expert on, you know, tropical plants? All my number ones, raise your hand. And so we recognize those experts and we really talk it up, and the students get very excited about playing that game. So that is really fun. Okay, Chrissy, we've got work time coming up here. Let's see.
Laura, do we want to talk to them about putting their links in the gallery walk document during this work time?
Yes, absolutely. You want to explain that?
Okay, sure. So we mentioned at the beginning of today that we were going to celebrate all your hard work. We've been in and out of breakout rooms. We worked individually with you guys. We know that you guys have some awesome things to share. And so having said that, we would like very much for you to be able to share your work with the group. So we're going to leave some time for you guys to be able to share. And so the process for doing that, let me just share that with you. So you can see here, can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay, good. Okay. On your handouts link, if you go down to a little ways, you'll see gallery walk. If you'll just click on that link, you'll come up with a document that you should be able to edit. And what we'd like you to do is type your name here. So if I were going to do this, I would type Chrissy Jasdavsky, and then I would put the link of my document. So for example, I have been helping with the science standard. So I'm going to take my document. I'm going to get a share. Anyone with link can share it as viewer. You can share it as editor. if you're going to allow us to use it on Go NC Go Open, if you're going to allow us or give us permission to use those materials and post them, you might want to put editor in case we have to, make a little adjustment with spelling or something like that. If not viewer is fine. Hit copy link. And then you're going to go to that gallery walk and you're going to paste the link. And then here is a column that says, please sign here if you give your permission to share with educators across the state of North Carolina and Go NC Open. And so if you are okay with that, if you will simply type your name in there, letting us know that we have your permission. Of course, all your work will be credited to you on NC Go Open, but just allowing us permission to post it there. We have a little format we put them into. Laura's put quite a few up so that they're all kind of consistent looking. And then just type your name here. If you're not okay with sharing it on NC Go Open, that's fine. Just don't sign your name there. And we will respect that. So if at some point between now and the end of work time, you will share the links for the things that you would like to share, and or whichever applies, willing to share with NC Go Open on this document, we will come back. And when we come back, we'll give everybody, just a couple minutes, 1 or 2 minutes to pick something they've done and share it with the group so we can celebrate it. Laura, did I leave anything out?
No, I don't believe you did. Great job.
Okay, so all right, so Laura, you did the work. Did you do the work time on there? How much
I
work
haven't
time
yet.
will we like to give them?
Let's see. This will be our last work time. Then we'll do our gallery and closing.
And we've got just a couple
So-
slides at the close and not many. I think there's maybe 4.
So let's see. It's 2:19.
How about 3?
Yes.
That's too late. 3's good.
It's exactly what I thought. 3.
Good. So we will let you have the next maybe 40 minutes to continue and finish working on some of your areas. We'll open up the breakout rooms if you want to get back in them. Then at 3 o'clock, we'll come back, finish up our slides, and do our gallery walk. Okay, guys, it looks like we are coming back together. It's 3 o'clock. Hope you all had a lot of time to work on your strategies. And now we're just going to move to, now we're just going to move to the closing of our session. So we would just want to take a minute to help you kind of put everything we've done together. So as we said, these strategies can be used individually in a lesson, or they can be put together. So we wanted to show you a little bit of what the progression of a unit that is put together might look like. And Laura hinted at this a little earlier when she showed you her little diagram of the progression of a unit. So we just want to take a second. So now you're able to plan sequentially. Focus and motivation, teacher input, opportunities to practice with guided oral language, and then progression into reading and writing. So if we look at Laura's plant unit, we started with the process grid. We planned out our unit, planned out our attributes, our examples, and filled in the information. Then we used that information in each of the strategies, particularly the top rows information in each of the strategies that we presented to the class. So we started out with focus and motivation. We wanted to spark our kids' interest. We want to get them motivated. We want to assess what they already knew, and we did that with observation charts. Then we used our teacher-made big book. which is also part of that focus and motivation component. And in the Teacher Made Big book, we kind of front load important information for the students, provide them some background knowledge about the topic that we're going to be studying. Then we moved into direct teacher instruction, and we provided valuable information in the form of a pictorial input chart. We reinforced those standards and that information using a narrative input chart. And then we moved into our guided oral practice components, which allowed students to use picture file cards, do sorts, open or close sorts, which would allow the students to practice academic conversations or discussions with one another using academic vocabulary, would reinforce the content concepts as well. We went into our chant, which allowed our students to again practice using those content terms, content concepts, academic vocabulary orally. And then we moved to our sentence patterning chart and that guided oral practice component, which again reinforced and created a low affective filter environment for students to begin to create sentences orally. We also learned some syntax parts of speech, some syntax and sentence structure, which is going to eventually move us into writing. And then we move into our reading and writing components, where our students are now able to take all the background information they've learned, all of the academic vocabulary, and apply it to a text that they're able to work through and comprehend. And then we come back full circle with, as Laura mentioned, the game and using the expert text and kind of the jigsaw activity with the expert text to come back and have students tell us what they've learned in a game, and they provide the information that goes on the process grid to us, which is a way for us to see, did the students get everything the standard said they were supposed to get? Are they able to give us that information back and complete that process grid in that game? And so that is what, when we say they can be used together, that's what we mean. That they can be used to create a plan, a unit. Sometimes we get questions from participants about what a lesson plan or a week's lesson plan might look like, or a unit plan. So we provided this as just an example to show that these strategies, because that's what they are, they're not a program or curriculum. These strategies can be used very flexibly within a unit. And you can see here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of sample observation charts. We might take 20 minutes with those. The inquiry chart might take 20 minutes. And if there's time, we might go into some literacy activities. Tuesday, we might do our big book, revisit our inquiry chart to see what information we can add to it, or answer, or prove or refute. Then we might Wednesday go into our world map. So this just kind of shows you a progression of how you might use these strategies to form a unit plan. And so we wanted to provide that for you. Are there any questions about that? Okay, I'm not seeing any or hearing any. So we're going to just kind of finish up with our NCDPI resource websites. Here's our ELD resource hub, which is going to provide you with access to so many documents. The checklist that we used in our training for the ELD standards is going to be there. There's also another wonderful checklist there for those language features that we talked about today, and what language features might be used with each of those language functions. There's charts for content teachers that match up the content standard, the science content standard, with an ELD standard. There are so many resources there that we encourage you to visit that. NC Go Open is where we said you can actually find some OCDE Project GLAD materials already posted. So you might want to visit that. Here are some just additional resources that might be helpful for you. WIDA, which is the consortium that provides our language testing, and also created our ELD standards. There's an English Learner Toolkit from the Office of English Early Language Acquisition that gives some good materials. Go-to strategies for use with multilingual learners, and then of course the WIDA standards framework that you can access digitally that gives you several different versions of our ELD standards and support resources. And then I went back and checked our parking lot, and on the parking lot, the question about training, individual teacher trainings, and what that looks like. The question was, the person clarified that the question actually was about individual teacher trainings. So if you would like to attend a training where you individually can be trained either through OCDE Project GLAD, they do offer trainings, and the trainings can be taken through RESA. You can click here. They have a website, or click here rather. They have a website that will tell you when their sessions for training are coming up. They have a tier 1 training, which has the first training you would take would be tier 1. Or research and theory. I think they've changed the name. The research and theory is going to be similar to today's, where they give you many more strategies, demo many more strategies. And then the second portion of that tier 1, which is absolutely awesome, is the student demonstration. And that is 4 days where you go and actually watch trainers like Laura and myself present and do the strategies with a real class of real students. You sit in the back and watch that for half a day, and then you have the opportunity to work on your own unit in the afternoon. It is just so powerful. I cannot explain to you how powerful it is to watch that demonstration. The person to contact if you're interested in being trained through RESA is Candy Sellers. Her email is here. The OCDE Project GLAD program has a national training center in California. If you aspire to be trained in California, here's their contact information, and then also mine and Laura's. And I just encourage you to reach out to me and Laura. I know I speak for both of us when I say I love to get emails from teachers who have gone through Glimpse, and they email me and say, oh, we used the sentence patterning chart today, and I want to show you what the kids did. Or I get pictures sometimes of, I want you to look at this learning log, look at the connection this child made. We love to get those. They make me smile because we both love this set of strategies so much and believe in the power they have. So please reach out to us with questions, with process grids you want comments on. We love to help. And having said all that, Laura, if you don't have anything to, do you have anything to add before we move to our gallery walk?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay, great. So we're going to go to our gallery walk now, and we are going to just give each person maybe, let's say 2 minutes, which I know is a short period of time, but again, we want to honor your time as well, and make sure that we end our session at 3:30 today. So we have 4 people who have shared on here. If you've not put yours on there, if you want to do that quickly, please do so. We'll go through and just maybe give about 2 minutes. Laura, if you'll just set our timer for us, or if you'll set a timer, use your phone, just so we can be sure that we're giving each group 2 minutes. What I will do is click on the resource, and then we will allow the group members to unmute and just share the resource with us. And then at the bottom of your screen, you have some little icons. that where you can applaud, you can send smiley faces or hearts, you can send celebrations. If you'll use those little reactions at the bottom, we can celebrate digitally with them at the end of their sharing, as well as type comments in the chat box, because that's really what this time is for. So let's go ahead and get started with our first group. That looks like this is Melissa, Sophia, Jennifer, Allie, and Sam. And I will let you guys unmute, and I'll just kind of move as you want me to move, and let you guys walk us through what you created.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam. I'm a ML teacher at White Plains Elementary School in Surrey County. I'll speak for everyone, and if anyone in my group needs to say something, please just interrupt me and let me know. We did our process grid on types of dinosaur fossils, and as you can see, we put different dinosaurs and gave information for let's see, there was 5 attributes: height, weight, where did they live, food, and fun fact. And if you please, thank you for, I guess, scroll down to the observation charts. Thank you, ma'am. So we inserted our images that we had from a reader that we were using, and we've got pictures, like real life pictures too, and as well as some dinosaurs got stuck in some amber. Many millions of you, perhaps billions, perhaps maybe, I'm unsure of the exact date, that long ago. And then we went on with the inquiry chart, where we predicted what would happen, and we placed information that answered those questions. And we also, if you could please click the link for the world map. Thank you, ma'am. What we did is we created well, the world. We got a world map, and we have pictures from different dinosaurs, where they were found and their locations. And I wish we had had more time for that one, but we were also working with the let's see, what it was. We were working with the inquiry chart, and then we went on and did the world map. And if you could please go back, ma'am. Thank you. And so for the guided oral practice components, we did the sentence patterning chart: ancient fossils buried deeply inside the museum, tiny fossils imprinted profoundly around the world, dirty fossils trapped abruptly between the layers. And of course, they're color coded for all of the types of words, and the grammar behind them. Our here there chart, of course, we used another color coding for that, and we have a really cool mind map that I liked. And again, we answered height. We answered those attribute questions with the answers. So that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
Sam, I think you guys did a great job. I really enjoyed seeing that.
Thank you.
Yes, awesome job. Love the grid. Kids love dinosaurs. They're going to enjoy this unit. So very excited about it. Let us know how it goes when you use these with the kiddos. Okay, and so if you guys can find the reactions, I'm having a hard time finding mine now after I shared them. But if you guys can,
It's where it looks like a smiley face with a plus sign at the bottom next to the hand to raise the hand.
It's called reactions.
Oh, I see some there. Yes, I can't because of my panel present. I think they're hidden from me. But you guys, I see people giving some. I saw some applause going up. So yay, you guys did a great job. Okay, let's go to Stephanie. And Stephanie, if you want to just unmute and tell us a little bit about yours.
Okay. I did a high school lesson for social studies, civics, and government, and I did 2 different objectives. So comparing federal, state, and local, their role, order, and security and protection of individual rights, and who they are as the attributes in the process grid. And if you scroll on down and click on observation chart, I linked the observation chart. And I did a slide for each level because each level has different branches. So I did one for each branch on the observation charts for federal, state, and local, on the judicial, executive, and legislative branch.
Oh, that's a very nice.
And then if you go back, scroll down. I did a mind map also, but I didn't fill it in. I gave the stems. And I did the sentence pattern chart and a here there chant.
Okay, and then the here there, let's look at that one. Oh, I love it. Get that academic vocabulary. I love it. Enforcing, judging, maintaining, supervising. Wonderful.
And I had picture file cards where they could sort based on their rights. Oh, sorry, I didn't give you access. I apologize.
No worries.
I'll go back and do that real quick.
Okay.
Got it pulled up. Okay, you should be able to see it now.
There we go.
And they kind of what they do, what they regulate, their protection of individual rights.
Oh, I
and
love
sort
it
'em.
actually. And I've actually done, Stephanie, the powers one. I've actually done sorts with the powers.
Okay.
That's really, really good where they go in and, like you said, they kind of put, if you do a close sort with the powers of government, local, state, and federal, that's awesome. But these are great. Okay. Okay, and then we got a mind map.
That way they can see how they overlap, since some of them can overlap the federal and state and local.
Okay, good job. Okay, let's send some applause. Yay, awesome job. Person after my own heart. I love the social study ones. So absolutely great job.
Yes, very good.
Okay, and then we'll go to Pedro.
I just, sorry.
Oops. Did I open Pedro's?
Hold on, I had to mute the other computer. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to share my biggest takeaway for me was that I had used the process grid in my classroom all year long, but for me, the biggest takeaway was now I have a better understanding how to use the standards to actually plan a much powerful unit using the process grid. So I just shared the skeleton on that page, and at the bottom I have pasted the standards and how they blend together. And so that allows me to have a much better blueprint with my lesson as to what I'm trying to achieve and cover, and be very precise and intentional with my teaching. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Pedro. And that is really, really important, and that we're comfortable with those standards. And you did a great job with your grid. And it's an ELA grid. So then those are they look a little different. So yay, Pedro. Okay.
Great.
And then we'll go to our last one here. That is Trish.
Yeah, I struggled with this, but I am a pull-out ESL teacher, ML teacher. I work with students from grades 12, from kindergarten to 12. So it makes it a little more difficult. But one of the things I just finishing up is working with summarizing with my students. And so they had these 4 articles, and then they had a map actually that had the who, what, where, when, why that they filled in from the article that they read. And then they created a summary from that.
Well, your grid is great. I know you said you struggle, but your grid is great. And summarization is right there in your standard. And we know as ESL teachers or English language development teachers, we have summarization is an important thing our students need to be able to do. So I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
I do too. I like the simplistic, just the one word of those attributes. And I know Chrissy's done that before too. That really makes it clear. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I think was there anything else, Trish, you wanted to share, or you?
No, that was just it.
Okay, thank you so much. You did a great job. Well, you guys have certainly worked so hard, and we're so appreciative of that. And we certainly want to celebrate that. We are going to close our session today with, I think we're going to surpass the turn and talk, Laura. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we want to give you plenty of time to do the final evaluation. This is, if you will just click on this and take maybe the last 6 minutes to complete it, please be really thoughtful. We go through these evaluations very carefully because we want to make this training as powerful for the people who attend it as we can. And we take your evaluations and we tweak and adjust our presentation. So please, if you don't mind, go through right now, click on the final evaluation. When you click on it, it should take you to an evaluation. And if you'll just go through and complete that and submit that for us, use maybe the next 5 minutes to do that. And then once you have completed the evaluation, I think you are fine to leave us. We want to express our gratitude to you guys for taking 2 days out of what we know is an extremely busy schedule, sharing your time that is so valuable with us, even on a Saturday. And we want to thank you for all the hard work you've put in, and your presence with us these last 2 days. So thank you so much.
Yes, I want to add on to that and tell you I am very thankful too. Hopefully, you'll be leaving with something you can implement, something that resonated with you, a strategy you'd like to try. I would encourage you to take it slow, try it and see what you think and tweak. Reach out to us. We're still available after this training, and we would love to help you out and give you any feedback.
Laura just placed the link for the final evaluation in the chat box if you could not access it through the handout. Also, just to let you know, I did link our presentation on the handouts links page. So when you go back and look at that, you should see training presentation, and it should be a active link now so that you have access to all the slides that we shared today.